record this. So we're being recorded. Henk, did you get your telescope in, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Oh, it looks nice.
So
Yeah, it does look pretty good.
Yeah, beautiful.
let's see if I guess you got the proper one here. Where did I see that? Oh, I was bouncing around here. I'll go to the internet. I had your page, I thought. Let's see. No, that's not it. Oh, there it is. This the one?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. Yep. GSO.
That's a really reasonable price. It's amazing. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I got it. So yeah, the Newtonians are really cheap, and you can take great images with it if you have a good reflector. So
does it come with the rings, the holding rings?
yes, yes, it came with it, and also with the Losmandy dovetail, the shoe.
Oh, it's got a fan on it.
Yeah, the fan. Haven't tried that yet. There are still some parts that I need to install. There were some parts for that, I think.
Even came with an extension tube, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. That is narrower than 2 inch. I'm not quite sure what it's for, but
well, you can use it for culminating if you get a laser culminator.
oh, okay. Yeah, I have a Howie Glatter laser. I'll be using the Howie Glatter.
It came with a finder.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a it's a straight through finder, so that's kind of useless. But
yeah.
I don't know if I could turn it into maybe a guide scope or something like that. I haven't done that yet. I would like to maybe get a
With the Newtonian that's on this scale of size, I'd recommend that you not guide the separate scope. You need to, if possible, guide through the main scope at the same time as you take pictures with a little pick-off prism on the side.
Yeah, off-axis guiding, right? Yeah, that I haven't really tried that yet. I'm not sure. If I want that, because then it's I know it's better, but it also creates some problems if you have several components that you have to screw into your optical train. Sometimes it gets pretty tight, and the spacing is difficult. I hear from a lot of people that it's difficult to install an OAG properly.
I used a guide scope, 75 millimeter refractor on my C11, and used the PhD guidance system, and I didn't have any. Of course, there's a carbon fiber tube, and I didn't have any problem with flex or any problem with it not tracking properly.
All right.
So
yeah,
I know people say, well, use it in focus so you don't have the flex problem. Put it in the focal train, but I didn't have any problem with it.
But but just like you're saying, it depends on the rigidity of the tube. If everything's real rigid, you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, this is a steel tube. It's pretty heavy duty.
Oh, okay.
I found that later this afternoon because there was a guy. I also posted it on Losmandy, and the guy said from England, and he said, "Well, I have a 12-inch, and it's 30 pounds. 30 pounds. Mine is 48 pounds." So, and then I looked up the scope he had. That was like an aluminum tube. So it's a big difference. But okay, well, they advertise it as the advantage being that it's more better for the heat distribution or something like that. It's on the same page at Gina Astro. I forgot exactly what it said. I hope they're right. But yeah, there is no flex because that was one of my fears that there would be a lot of flex because of the tube is so big.
Okay.
But, it feels pretty solid.
Good. Looks solid.
Yeah.
Back in the around 2000, all the Flustron scopes, they were being made in China, but they were all fiber carbon tubes, which were wonderful. And that's the one that Bruce has. Mine, the carbon fiber tube. So they're really rigid and they are very good thermally.
Yeah.
And then
lightweight.
making them, they're lightweight, and then they went back to aluminum. I don't know why, but seemed to step backwards.
Well, you would think that aluminum would have more temperature issues than the graphite fiber or composite fiber. I've got a refractor. I've got one of those 80 millimeters, and it's one of those graphite fiber tubes, and I really like it a lot.
Yeah, aluminum does. And in my Edge, which is I've had for a couple of years, they have ventilation backed by the cells, so they ventilate it. Also, it has to be ventilated because there's optics in the train, and if they don't ventilate, there's no way for air to get back and forth within it, because the correction optics are between the coming back from the secondary out to the eyepiece. They're before the eyepiece. That's where they're set. So they have to ventilate the tube, and that's the way they do it to get equilibrium in the tube.
A lot of 5-star reviews.
Yeah, it looks like a really great scope.
So what's the millimeter focal length of that thing?
Let's see, it's an f4, so that's
It's about
48 inches.
48 inches, whatever that turns out to be millimeter wise. So that's a little bit more than, my 10 inch is 1,000 millimeters. So I'm going to guess it's probably something like 1250 or something like that.
Yes, exactly.
So it has a 3 1/4 inch Crayford style focuser, huh? Wow.
Right. Yeah, that's very normal, I guess. But the focuser itself is 2 inch, right? So I mean the opening. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
So that's fine. Yeah. Some scopes come with like 2.5 inch, and that's better for if you have a full frame DSLR or something like that. But the sensor that I use is going to be APS-C size, so it should be good.
So have you collimated it already?
No, I just put it together last night, and it according to Gina Astro tests the scope, and they collimate it as well, so it should be collimated. So we'll see. And collimation is not a big deal. It's actually fun. If you have a Howick ladder, it's a beautiful instrument to use.
Hi guys, you showing your telescope, Henk?
Hi, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
I'm sure glad that worked out for you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So
Now-
Henk, is that a 12 inch or a 12.5 inch?
12 inch.
12 inch, okay.
And f4, I think it's a good deal. It's
Yeah, looks like a good scope.
can't go wrong with it, I think. Yeah, so I will have to get another counterweight maybe, because I can barely balance it right now. I have to put the weights in the utmost position, and I still have to put an imager on it, so it's going to get heavier a little bit.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
tube
I'll-
length on that is 4.5 feet.
So the tube length is
48 inches.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, a bit longer actually. So
You need a little bit more in front of the focuser and behind the mirror.
Hi, Mike.
so.
It's 4.5 to 5 inch, 48. The focal length 48, but it's going to be longer. So
Mhm.
4.5, 5 feet. That's
yeah,
a
something
beast.
like that. It's just the right size to lift this actually. So I've got fairly long arms, so I can hold it on both sides and fairly easily grab it. It's not huge.
What's the payload capacity of your mount?
I think they say 60 pounds astrophotography.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's why I got the Losmandy. I mean, that's known for being pretty rigid.
Well, if you have it properly balanced, you can get away with a lot more weight. So,
Right. Yeah, and I was pleased that my Onstep controller just took it so easily. It works really well. So yeah.
well, there's a lot of gearing when you think about it. It's a worm gear. It's not, a direct drive, and so there's a lot of multiplication.
Yeah.
Now the weight of the tube without the counterweights, is it around 30 pounds to 30 to 40 pounds?
48 pounds.
48. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty big lift.
What I've been able to do, if you can't find weights that are cheap enough, well, you might not be able to find them now. I've got some old weights from a weight set. I got a barbell, And so that's what I use on my telescopes. I put like a 10 pound at the end there, and that's a lot of moment arm multiplication you got there. So if you have any old weights,
Okay.
just attach it at the end. Save yourself some money.
Okay. So are those weights? Do they have a hole in the middle that's large enough for this?
It's usually
May
about a
not
1 inch hole, right?
They may or may not. I think they might be. If
Yeah.
not, you just screw it on the end.
Okay. Yeah, I could try it. I don't need a whole lot. It's actually almost balanced. Yeah. I was
Well,
also
it's
thinking maybe I could mount the guide scope on the
Yeah.
counterweight. That would actually move the weight a little bit.
It's balanced now, but you don't have a camera that could be like a couple of pounds, and then you don't have the
Right.
guide scope, and so you might wind up needing every bit of weight on it.
I'd recommend be a little, if you're going to shoot, you probably want to be a little telescope heavy on RA and balanced on deck. Simply because the RA has more wobble in it because of the worm gearing, at least on my mount anyway. And so what happens is that in the wind, it has a tendency to rock back and forth. So if you got it weighted on the telescope side, then it won't do that.
But if he's got an auto guider, that should take out most of it if he's got it adjusted. I think.
Sorry, Dick, are you talking about counterweighting, making it east heavy or something like that? Is that?
Yeah, make it a little heavier on the telescope side on RA, because see what's going to happen is since you've got a little slop in that gear, it's gonna, and it gets in the wind or in a certain position, it'll rock back and forth, and you'll get dog bone stars, you know, where you got a star at each end.
Well, I hope that I have eliminated all that slop by my spring-loaded gears.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Oh, that'll work. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have that.
That should, yeah.
Yeah,
I built myself. They look really ugly, but they work actually.
Okay.
Spring-loaded gears. I've never heard of that.
Oh,
Well, it's
they-
actually new for Losmandy. They started adding those a couple of years ago, although on cloudy nights it was already advised in 2013, I think, a long time ago. But it just took them a long time.
yeah,
I think
Ioptron has those. My CM60 has those. The one thing that I found, if you really load up the telescope right to the near the capacity of the mounting, balance becomes really critical. And if you are a little bit off balance, you know, so you're messing with balance too much. So I have overdone it with mine because I got about 40 pounds or so on, 45 pounds total on a 60-pound max mounting, and makes all the difference. I mean, it handles it so much better.
Right,
So it's really better to overdo the mounting in terms of capacity, I think, anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
But the spring gearing is really great. I mean, because it locks in and it's really solid.
I think that's what Dick was talking about when he said you know to weight it on one side on the deck.
Well, yeah, I think what they're talking about is some kind of an add-on, or I don't know. Maybe you can describe it to me. But on my mount, I know I got rock. I mean, I could sit there and I could wobble it back and forth just by hand.
What they used to do is wrap a cord around the RA and hang a weight. And so when you had the scope balance, it would just put a slight pressure on one side of the worm wheel. So there always was a pressure.
It always stayed on one side of the gear. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I found the weighting works pretty well too. You know, I mean, I've had really pretty good luck with that method, and you can overdo it, as it's been said here. So you got to be careful not to overdo it on RA.
Yeah.
Yep, RA is critical.
Yeah. Well,
The other thing I found is the constants in PhD. They have these aggression constants. And the one they put 75, it's a percentile term. So they put 75% on deck and 50% on RA. Now I ask you, you shouldn't have to move deck. So if you put too much in there, it'll start oscillating back and forth. You'll start to see it. It'll go one way and then it'll go the other way. So that means you've got a control system problem and you need to tone down the aggression term. So if you get oscillating like that, just tone your aggression terms down to a lesser value and you'll get a better result.
Yeah. Well, the PhD guider, they have that, what do they call it? It's a functionality in there where it tests your mount and gives you, it suggests the proper coefficients for the time and the aggression. And
Now, we're talking about backlash here, right?
Yeah,
Oh, you're good.
yeah.
Gear backlash, what we were talking about, gear backlash on the balancing, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's where these springs, this is where these spring-loaded gears, that's just fantastic. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so here are my spring-loaded gears. They'll probably make you laugh, but I wanted to just do something quickly.
yeah, please show.
Okay, I think I'm showing it, but maybe I'm not.
I think you are.
Yeah, so okay, so this is the picture here. You're looking at the bottom.
Yeah.
So the way to tighten the screw normally is you push it in tangentially to make sure that the worm gear itself does not shift laterally. And then you have to push it in radially to engage the worm gear to the mount. And so that's what you do when you manually adjust the gear. And what this spring does is it applies, both the tangential force, and that's a pretty strong spring. The metal is from a tomato cage that I had lying outside. I just cut a piece of wire off, and I wanted to make it non-invasive, so I didn't want to drill any holes or anything like that. So I wrapped it around the screws. The screw here to the right, I don't know. Yeah, you can see my cursor, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can see it.
It's actually loose, so that allows this whole upper gear system to move in the radial direction. And there's this little clip here. That's a little sheet metal clip that pushes a screw inside, and that screw normally keeps the cover plate on. But right now I've screwed it out. So now if you push on that screw, it will push the gear in the radial direction towards the mount. And altogether it works. I mean, it's butt ugly, but it works. My first version was during a 5-minute coffee break in the morning. I wrapped some rubber bands around here, and that also works. So this screw here to the left is screwed tight, and this one is loose. And yeah, you'd have to sort of know how this thing works from the inside. Anyway,
I should have been an orthodontist.
Sorry. Yeah, it's anyway.
But you wound up mounting your motor on that assembly. It's not mounted directly on that plate as normal, correct?
That motor is an aftermarket. That's part of my Onstep system. So
okay.
That orange mounting plate was actually part of a kit that I got from Astro Gadget. So since I only had the 492 controller, which is only for tracking. And at some point I was tired of it. So I found this Astro Gadget kit online, and I ordered it and was never able to make it work, but the mounting plate was actually good. There's a piece of steel actually. And I used that also as the basis to mount the Onstep stepper motors that I got later on. So yeah, that's all DIY. I probably have a close-up of that somewhere. Let me see here. Case for Onstep. Yeah, well, that's the controller itself. It's not the motors. Let me see here. Saddle. No, that's something else. Spring-loaded worms. Okay.
Well, talk about ingenuity.
Yeah,
That's great
really.
ingenuity.
Oh yeah, here you can see the motor better, I think. So that's a butt ugly Ethernet connector.
You saw
That doesn't work good.
backlash in the motor before, in the operation, before you made these modifications?
Well, I had to because the crown wheel was not very round, and that's what was causing the problem. So that kit that I ordered from Astro Gadget was probably fine, but at that moment I was still struggling with the mechanics itself. So the mount kept binding up if I used those motors, and I wasn't sure what was causing it. I went onto the Losmandy board, and they say, well, it can be all kinds of things. Usually, just temperature change can cause it. So if you got your mount inside and you've got it all tuned, and you take it outside, then you might have to retune it again, which is kind of odd. But also, if it's not perfectly round, and I had Scott on the phone one time about this, and Scott Losmandy,
Yeah.
and he said, yeah, well, they're not always perfectly round. I mean, he admitted it. But mostly what people do without the spring-loaded worms is just add a little slop and just load it east heavy, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I think the spring-loaded worms are a much better solution.
As he designed it, the mount was never meant for photography. The original GM100 was.
Yeah.
But he told me, because I did an article for Astronomy magazine for him way back when we was first starting out. He said everybody was banging me on the head to have dual axis worm gears. So he said, so I did it. So, you know, things are not as well.
I guess I lucked out with my G11. I never had a backlash problem. I would just mush the gears together with a piece of paper between them, and then let the gears push the piece of paper out, and then it worked fine.
Interesting. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I still have my G11. It's like the first year that came out.
Yeah.
So, Hank, you're lucky in a way because well, first I can see it's got added gizmos like the levels and all that, but the clutch disc on mine is like about an inch smaller in diameter, and so it doesn't grab as well. And
I mean, mechanically, aside from the non-roundness of the crown wheel, is just phenomenal. And especially the tripod. This is a folding tripod, and if you look at how it's made, you know, you see these clamps here. So there are two braces on both sides of each leg, and there's this quick release type of thing. You can tighten it fairly easily, and it's really tight. And when you put it down, it is absolutely rock solid. It's as solid as a pier.
Yeah,
So,
actually, what I've done is, well, the original tripod is very sturdy and very light. But what I did was when I built my 10-inch telescope at SBAU, I attached legs to the bottom where the legs attached, and it's really great for a reflector. It's the proper height and everything. Is really a steady mount for F10. I mean, a 10-inch f6 telescope.
Yeah, and I believe they have changed the tripod over time because I've seen older versions that seem to be totally rigid, not non-foldable or so, which is probably also good. But this is foldable, and actually, it's not that heavy. It's all aluminum. It's perfectly portable, transportable, I should say. Yeah. So,
as a matter of fact, when I got my Misu mount, they actually have an adapter that goes on top of the Losmandy tripods because they are so sturdy.
Yeah, yeah.
And they don't suffer from the one thing that the other tripods do, where all they have is a pivot point where the legs are, and they have a little straightener there. The actual head part can wobble around a little bit because there's stress on there. So the Losmandy, you know, there's no wobbling at all.
Not at all, and it's as solid as a pier. So I'm very happy about that. Since you know.
You talked about the crown wheel. Where is that? Is that horizontally?
It's actually the crown wheels for both RA and for deck. So it's just the big cog wheel.
Yeah.
So it's basically you know, just an axis with a cog wheel on it with how many 360 teeth, I believe.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple, but it still has to be.
And this configuration here that we're looking at in heavy dew, this is okay because of that plastic cover.
Oh yeah, it's probably okay. I've had it outside. I've never had any problems with that. The only thing, well, the Ethernet connectors, they're a little bit sloppy. Before I have to start, I have to push these Ethernet connectors in. So I use Ethernet cables because that's usually what people do at Onstep. And then for every wire that the stepper motor needs, you've got 2 wires on the Ethernet cable. So it's got 8. So it's got
Redundancy.
four pairs. And the funny thing is, one time I made an error with soldering, and one was not connected, and you think, well, the other one would be good enough, but it's not. It's really kind of critical that both of them are soldered properly, or else the motor will not work, or it will work poorly. It's interesting. I'm not sure. Well, you can get away with it by using Ethernet cable and just soldering everything straight from the Arduino to the motors, but then you can't really take the cables off, or the Arduino. It's nice to have those cables that you can just plug in and off.
Yeah, removable's better.
Yeah.
Speaking about your setup there with the Raspberry Pi, I actually got around to installing Astroberry on my Raspberry Pi 3 and spent a couple nights fooling around with it, all the software and stuff like that. There's a lot of capability with it. The one thing I can't do is use my Canon cameras. They don't have a driver for it. But I was just wondering, did you ever get around with this setup here as shown, use plate solving for pointing?
Yes, I am using plate solving every time now. And by the way, I didn't quite hear what you said. You said that there was one driver not supported. Did you say Canon DSLR?
Yeah, I didn't see one there for it. Otherwise,
but they do have drivers for. You're talking about INDI, right? Ekos.
Well, it's INDI's inside Ekos, isn't it, or the other way around?
Well, INDI is the protocol, and yeah, it's a bit confusing. I mean, the whole website is called indilive.org. INDI is the counterpart of ASCOM. INDI is, distributed, platform independent, and everything that ASCOM is not. It's also lightweight, so you can run it on an 8-bit processor if you'd have to, whereas ASCOM can only run on heavy-duty computers that support DCOM, which is a very heavyweight protocol.
No, the Raspberry Pi 3 seemed to operate pretty good, and actually I was doing web surfing and a whole bunch of other things with it.
So for your Canon camera, what I'm currently using is actually the G-Photo driver. So G-Photo is a driver that works for almost any camera that you can find. So in the GUI, it's called G-Photo CCD, but there's also a choice of Canon DSLR. So I didn't
see it, but I'll try looking for it.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I think I've tried it in the past, but then I went to the Fuji. I was trying the G-Photo CCD, and somehow it stuck. And then I plugged the Canon back in, and it also worked with it. So it works quite well. I do the plate solving. So this is a Raspberry Pi 2B. So it's this little black box under those 2 Ethernet connectors that are glued on there. And,
so it's even older and slower than what I have. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and I use it. I run everything here, so you can run Ekos. You can run, if you want to, you can run the client on the Windows laptop. But I just use VNC to log on to the Raspberry Pi here, and use it that way. And it's, despite that it's just a Pi 2B, it's still fast enough. And I've done the plate solving, so I'm using the auto guider right now, because my main imaging camera is the Fuji, and that's not supported by G-Photo. So I use the guider to do the plate solving, and I've made sure that it points in the exact same direction as the telescope itself. So
I was just wondering at a later time if you could demonstrate how you connect things up with a VNC between one computer and another.
Yes,
I'd be really happy to see that, or offline one of these days, get in contact with you.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Feel free to email me.
Okay,
The best reference is probably the Raspberry Pi website because this is a universal problem that everybody wants to do. It's the first thing usually, you know, the first thing that you want to do with you want to be connected without having to hook up a screen or a keyboard. So yeah.
so in the reality, you just set this up. You set it go and you get inside where it's nice and warm and do everything from there again.
Yeah. So when I set it up, I first do the polar alignment, which I do with a DSLR and a piece of tape. That works quite well. And then I go, let's see here. Yeah, then I hook everything up. Then I start the plate solving basically. So I set the Losmandy up in the home position and everything's level and so on. And when I ask it to go to some spot, then it usually gets there, near there, and I start the plate solving. And it gets there within the first solve takes about, you know, it could take a minute or so, but the next ones are faster. And so far I've only ever needed one solve. And that's probably because the polar alignment is good. So yeah.
I've just started trying to use plate solve with my niece with the Zytec controller, and it's real interesting. I having some issues with the camera control software with it, but the within the suite they have a plate solver. So I was just bringing up old photos that I did and said, "Can you find it?" The only thing that I said was approximately how big the imagery took, and boy, you know, bam, bam, boom, you know, they found it. It's really a nifty thing. So I think what you do is that once you align it or you get the Onstep, you do a plate solve. Okay, you know generally in the area where you're at, and you'll slew to your next object. If it isn't there, you do a plate solve, and it'll tell you where it's truly pointing. Then what you do is you put a correction in to get it to where it's supposed to be. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So them from the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi is connected to my router, and it will get the time from the internet. So you know it'll pass the time on to the Onstep controller. So the Onstep controller also knows what time it is, and that's important if you want to align, right? So
Right.
so it roughly knows where it has to go, and it's never really that far away from the target. Then you start the plate solving, and if you ever try that, by the way, by default it is the online plate solver, and that's what I did the first time. Then it took like 5 minutes before it ported anything back, and later on. But you can download the index files and put them on the Pi. There are clear instructions on the website on how to do that, and then it's much faster after that.
Is that resident in the Raspberry Pi, or is it on your computer inside the house?
No, go to indilive.org. They have all the directions there.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you're talking about the Astroberry. That's a
Yes.
ready package that you can download, I guess, from the Raspberry Pi website.
Yes.
So far I've always downloaded INDI or Ekos from the indilive.org website. But last time I was there, I think they actually referenced the Astroberry package. So
well, they've got everything there. I mean, they've got you know, 3 different. They got Cardus the Seal and 2 other really capable you know planetary things. They include about 2 or 3 planetary camera control programs and you know the regular ones, and they also include some programs that allow you to control widgets with the Raspberry Pi as part of the suite. So you know if you got a relay or you know something controlling a shutter of some sort, you're able to do it. It's all there, part of the suite.
right. Yeah, this was an earlier version. Okay, step. Yeah. Well, anyway, this is pretty much, yeah, this is still the way it looks. I put it on a piece of board and it fits right in between these. You see those screws on the side?
Yeah, it's
That works out pretty well. I used some metal epoxy. So I drilled some holes from the side and had some 1/4-inch screws that I just stuck in there, a little bit of metal epoxy around it. It's rock solid. So I can tighten those screws and it doesn't fall apart. So it's kind of nice. But anyway, yeah, I'll stop sharing.
Now that's the little Raspberry Pi right there, right?
Yeah, this guy here. Yeah.
Oh.
and
What about the circuit board to the right?
So it's actually 2 boards. So the one at the bottom is the WeMOS. That's a part, you know, it's ridiculously cheap. It's 99 cents, but you have to pay $3 for shipping. And 4 megabytes, and it's a an Arduino and steroids really, and that runs the Onstep software. And what's on top of it is this is the CNC V3 board. So Onstep offers a choice of boards that are supported, and this is one of them. So you'll see this. It's just a bunch of connections, and it's got places for stepper motor drivers. So that these 2 here, that's where the ToimC 2130 stepper motor drivers are.
Mhm.
And you'll see, I could have plugged 2 more in, so I could have had a focuser, which, by the way, I will get once I get my imaging gear. I ordered an autofocuser that should fit on the focuser that I have. And I could also, let's see, if you have an Alta system like a Dobsonian, you could put a D rotator on there. Onstep supports that as well. I only use 2 right now, and I did figure out my own connection. So I figured it all out from the CPU of the WeMOS down to the connections on the WeMOS to the CNC for 3 here and what Onstep expects. It's kind of, you have to sort of chart it all out. I was working with a version that did not support the CNC V3 actually at the time. That was a stable version, and now they have a released version, and it is officially supported. And if I would have known that, I would have taken a look, then I would have known what to do. But I had to figure it out from the ground up, which is actually very educational, and it gives you some confidence. I also have a configuration that uses a ToimC. A ToimC is also an Arduino on steroids, but it's much smaller, but much more powerful. And that's faster than this thing, even, I think. Yeah, these ToimC 2130s, they support mode switching. So if you have to use a computer like the Arduino to drive all that stuff, then sometimes it has to go very fast to these pulses and so on. But with mode switching, you can actually let the ToimC 2130 driver do all that. So there's a slow mode for tracking, and that's when the Arduino provides the pulses. And there's a when it's slews, then you go to mode switching, and then it can go a whole lot faster. So that's sort of how it works.
Those aren't where your cursor was. Those aren't the motors themselves, are they?
No. These are the ToimC 2130s.
Okay.
I can't zoom in on it, but no, the motors are.
And those go to the motors.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. So these black Ethernet cables, they go to the motors.
Okay.
So
those are signal processing chips he's got in there.
Okay.
It's actually a dual core processor, and one interesting thing is that it's not a bare bones Arduino, so it actually runs on FreeRTOS, which is a real-time operating system that's free, as it's well known. It's open source and so on. And you can actually run, if you want, you could run Onstep on one processor and something else on another. What I tried to do is, because this thing has native Wi-Fi on it, this WeMOS board, I'm not using the Wi-Fi. I'm just using the Bluetooth that it provides, and I can use that through my cell phone. It's kind of convenient because setting up an access point is a bit of a hassle on the Raspberry Pi, because the Raspberry Pi does support access points, but you have to configure it. And yeah, if you don't, then you depend on your router and so on. So if you want to use it standalone, then Bluetooth is just a hell of a lot more practical. Or Ethernet cable. I could also connect an Ethernet cable actually here to the because it's on over there to the left. You can't see it. It has an Ethernet port, and that's what I would use in the field. Right now, I'm using the Pi through the router when I'm at home. But when I'm in the field, I would probably hook up the Ethernet cable. anyway, so yeah, so the WeMOS does have Wi-Fi, and I tried to do that. So I ran the Onstep on one processor and tried to run the Wi-Fi on the other. But when I put it all together, it was just slightly too large, the image. So unfortunately, I exceeded the, I think, 1.3 megabytes that you can use for your code. When you pull in the Wi-Fi, that's a lot of code that you're pulling in. It's an access point, right? So anyway, I don't need it because I've got Bluetooth, and frankly, I control it mostly through Ekos from the Raspberry Pi. It's much more practical. And Mike, I have to say, that plate solving really boosted my pleasure of using this drive, because it makes a huge difference. So, because just proper aligning can be very time intensive and
Oh yeah.
nerve wracking. But you start plate solving, and it has it the first time, and the second time, well, you can solve it again to make it more accurate. But it's really good. So then you can just go inside and control it. Yeah,
Right.
so it's really well.
Henk, I'm not familiar with plate solving. Can you describe that?
Well, basically, it's
Can-
you give it a picture, and it has a bunch of what they call index files that
I can
type-
demonstrate it right now if
yeah, go
you
ahead.
wanna
Go
share-
ahead. I'll stop sharing.
okay. I just, as a matter of fact, in my club last night, watched a bunch of beginners.
To make a
I
long
was talk-
story short, Richard, you just show them a picture. You show the software a picture of the stars, and it tells you what the right ascension and declination of
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I have that on one of my 6-inch scope. I mean, that's a commercial version of it, right?
Yeah.
It gets the patterns of the stars, and then
Yeah.
it knows where it is.
Yeah, it tells
Okay,
what it is.
Okay, hold a
Yes.
second. Let me see if I can.
All right. Yeah. Well, I understand that. Yeah, I just hadn't used that term, plate solving. Hadn't heard that.
Let's see here. Am I sharing anything now?
Yes,
or
Yeah, I
not?
see your screen.
We see a pretty blue rectangle.
It says
Okay,
plate
good.
solving.
Oh, okay, so I'm going to open up an image that I did, which is like this one here, the flame. Okay, this is what comes with the, okay, and so it shows a not very nice image, but okay, so I've got that there. And so I tell it tools plate solve, and then tell it what the size of the sensor is. I think it's 30 by 20, 25, I think, or something like that. And tell it to do plate solve. And so it's analyzing, extracting the stars now, and it's hopefully I did it right so that it shows everybody. Okay, there we go. So it's detected stars. So I can tell you what you're seeing here now. It's found the location, 5 hours, 41 minutes, minus 147.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so let me show you, turn things off here so I can tell you what's happening. Okay, so the first thing it does, it looks for stars and you get the red things. Okay,
All right.
next,
Mike, what software is this?
this is what came with the SciTech, but other ones do exactly what this does. Okay, the next
Okay.
thing it does, it finds the catalog stars, and then from that, the ones with the circles around it are the ones that says, hey, okay, this is
Yeah.
what I can use. And so it's like playing with a jigsaw puzzle with the same size pieces, and you're moving an X, Y in rotation and finding an exact match, and then on the back of that piece is where you're finding it is the location. So what's really interesting about this is that I had a picture of M81 with a nova in it, okay, and I did a plate solve on it. And what's really nifty about these programs, it can tell you what stars it sees and knows, and more importantly, what stars it doesn't know about.
Doesn't know.
That is a supernova or
Yeah.
an asteroid, a new asteroid or a comet. So with a little additional hooks, because I don't know if you can see this process tools, you can do precision photometry, time series, which means that you can do like asteroid photometry and stuff like that. And right here, search for asteroids. So this opens up a lot of new areas, like the unistellar telescopes, okay, are totally automatic telescopes, okay, that they don't even have an eyepiece, they have a CCD, and they line themselves by automatically plate solving, and then they have groups of these guys that go out and do things like it was in the newspaper somewhere else, where a bunch of them, 32 of them, looked at an asteroid and determined the size of the asteroid and the shape of it, and doing occultation timings. Okay, you can do that. It's what you would call a game changer for citizen science, where you can get something relatively small and take it with you in a small compact car and go someplace, set it up, and have it run off your cell phone, because that's all you require is a cell phone. And it does all this stuff, the plate solving and all this other stuff.
I wonder
So
if Chuck uses.
No, Chuck does something different. Chuck uses much more equipment and much more. Probably not much more
I have the Celestron 6-inch
Yeah.
that came out several years ago that has this system on it.
Star
And
Sense.
it just self aligns. In other words, it just takes pictures of fields and
Yeah.
from the plate solving, it determines where it is on the celestial field. And so it aligns itself in a few minutes.
Yeah, basically it does what is
Well,
matrix algebra.
it's the Sky Genius or Sky something.
Skyline.
Yeah, Skyline is the name of the program, but it's I forget the name of it came out with Sky Genius, but it's a separate camera off to the side.
Yeah. I could show you what it looks like. It's not much of anything, but it's like a small webcam with a short lens. And
yeah,
so
right. But it's amazing. It lines itself within a few minutes, and it does a pretty good job of aligning.
So it wasn't the evolution, Bob?
No, it's what's the evolution? Just trying to remember the exact title for it. Sky.
The Sky Prodigy?
Yeah, Sky Prodigy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you got that, yeah, it's a Sky Prodigy is what it is.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Get a picture of.
Yeah, I got it here. Yeah.
See it. Okay.
Sure.
Can
you see that?
Yeah. There you see the little camera.
Camera. Yeah.
And mine is 6 inches, which it's got great optics for a 6-inch scope. It's wonderful. But so it's very easy to set up.
Hey, Bob, they're only showing a 5-inch aperture on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe they just have 5-inch now. Mine's 6. Yeah.
It's not a Maksutov, or?
No, it's mid-Cassegrain.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe they don't sell that anymore.
Well, that's a Newtonian there.
That says Newtonian, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this is a Maksutov.
But it shows a corrector plate on the thing.
That's not a Newtonian. That looks, it says Newtonian reflector, but it's not highlighted. It's light colored.
Oh.
And it looks like a Schmidt-Cassegrain with the corrector plate and secondary.
Yeah, but they got another scope down below it, and I think that's what's the confusion point is. It looks like
Okay. Okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
that Sky Prodigy 130.
But this is a real game changer for beginner astronomers when you think about it, especially in the city where you have a lot of light pollution and you can't find those secondary stars, you know, in the third and fourth magnitude to go into alignment with. You know, this finds it for you.
Yeah, you have to turn up this. If there's quite a bit of light pollution, you have to turn up the sensitivity of the CCD camera. But there's an adjustment for that. So I've had really good results with it in terms of alignment. But in terms of using it with a larger scope, I mean, are there freestanding programs that are out?
For plate solve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, both web-based and you can download them, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. The SciTech one, I've got 3 catalogs and about 4 gigs on my computer stars.
Okay. Yeah, so where did you just do a search for?
No, you just point the telescope somewhere and press the Sikkim button.
No, I mean to find the different programs that are out there.
Oh, yeah, you have to do
Yeah.
search.
Yeah. Yeah. So for plate solving. Okay, well, I'll take a look at that.
Now, somehow you have to tell the mount where it really is, right? So, I mean, you can't do this with every mount. You have to have a mount that somehow could take that information
There
in.
has to be hooks between the plate solver and the control software. For
Yeah,
the mount.
like I've got an
Yeah.
Pro mount. It's probably not going to work on that mount.
What mount? Well, you know what you
Atlas
could.
Pro, Orion Atlas Pro.
Okay, here's what you could do. A lot of these plate solvers operate with planetarium software. So, you know, if you control your telescope from the planetarium and do a sync, what is known as a sync, then I think you should be able to find places where they'll tell you how to hook together the plate solve with the planetary. And
Yeah, I've got one of those Star Seeker modules, the wireless modules. I wonder if somehow you could, you know, do it that way too, sync it up somehow.
I think you could just take a Raspberry Pi and run Ekos, and it will support the Atlas Pro, and it will be no problem to do plate solving. Or you could use some Windows-based system. There's also things like Mina or SGP and
SharpCap.
Well, yeah. Anyway, there's plate solving on Windows as well.
as a matter of fact, SharpCap does have plate solve as part of it.
Yeah, SharpCap is good. Yeah.
SharpCap does? Because
Yes.
I have SharpCap on my computer now.
It's supposed to do plate solving.
Oh, it does. Okay. Well, that's interesting.
See, the hard part with my mount, which I'm having an issue with, is that the software I have doesn't work well with nebulosity, which is controlling my Canon camera. There's an issue with it, and so my only out is to go and buy a $300 Maxim DL to work with it. You know, it's just a small company, just a couple guys writing software for SciTech, and it's a pretty good mount. It does a lot of things, but there are few things that they need to fix on it. They've been working on it.
Ekos supports cameras, so I don't know what kind of camera you have, but it supports pretty much anything.
Well, I'll ask him if I can look at use Ekos with that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you choose for Ekos, it's a Unix system, right? And most people are not familiar with Unix or with Linux. It's Linux actually. I am quite familiar with Linux, so I like it because the Raspberry Pi only uses 2 watts, the one that I have, so I can put it, power it from my battery, and it will never run out. But Windows is much more power hungry, and I think also Linux is probably more stable, so I like that better, and they're cheaper boxes also.
There's a little bit of interesting history here, and maybe Jerry Jerry, you might remember this. This is back, I'd say 6 years, 7 years ago, maybe. And I know you were in the club then, and maybe Tim would remember this. But a guy came to lecture, and this was before plate solving, anybody was doing this. And do you remember that, Jerry? He came and lectured, and he talked about this system. And I remember asking a question. I said, well, gee, this is amazing stuff here. Has some real commercial application, you know. And it was before Celestron got a hold of it, or Mead. And so he said, yes, you know, we're talking with people. Well, sure enough, about a year later or so, Celestron comes out, and then Mead follows with it. And but we heard about it.
And what was the lecture about? Was he describing plate solving?
Yeah, he didn't call it that. He didn't call it plate solving. But he described this system where you have stars inputted into a base, and then the computer would tell you, the telescope computer would tell you where it was in space, where it was oriented toward the celestial sphere. And so you could then orient or align using this whole system, and you didn't have to use, you know, particular stars to align. And so I'm, you know, right away I thought, wow, this could be a real game changer, you know. And that's one of the reasons I bought the Prodigy, is I was really curious to see how this would work. And
I don't recall that specific thing. I recall a number of talks relating to that, but
yeah. But
You know, what really brought it on was some of the newer, cheaper, faster processors, and more importantly, RAM and non-volatile memory, such that it was cheap enough to hold all this information and put it inside something small. You know, back then, you know, RAM's really grown really a lot when you think about it. You know, you get your 1 terabyte solid state drive, okay, you know, for $160, or no, this wasn't 160, it was like $80 or something like that. But you said that, you know, you need to have all this information at hand by the processor in order to find this stuff. Otherwise, you wind up stuck having to look out on the internet and relying on the fact that somebody's going to solve it for you and send it back to you. You know, that's not the best of situations.
no.
well,
Hey guys, I got to check out early tonight. Can
Okay.
we revisit this next week? I have
Yeah.
a Takahashi EM11 mount.
bring it up.
It's a non-go-to.
You could
I don't
use
know
it.
what I'd do here.
You could do it. Tim, I got
Uh-huh.
my Bath Interferometer in.
Oh wow.
So I need to go put it together.
Oh wow. How's it look? Great.
Well, it looks like a bunch of pieces that are 3D printed. I haven't put it together yet.
What's
Oh,
it made out of?
online it looked really cool. By the way, Hank, I went looking for that Comet Hunter at Woodland Hills,
Yes.
and it's just not available anymore.
Oh.
And
Okay.
maybe it will be, but and I also looked, Dick, and I looked at that review in the March issue of Sky and Tel on that Red Cat 51. That thing, that's a hell of a little scope, boy.
I love it.
It's
Yeah,
a
I bet you did.
it's a Petsville.
Yep.
But there's something newer out that's almost, it's like $300 more. It's 61 millimeters, and then it's a f4.5, so it's a faster scope.
Wow.
So,
Is that William Optics?
no, it's Radian. If you look at OPT, it's about $1,000.
Wow. Hey guys, I got to go. I will see you next week.
Hey Tim, I was just looking at your.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that.
Yeah.
I'm going to work on that slit for the tester. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
See you guys.
All right. See
Oh,
you.
Doyle had
Yeah.
an idea on that.
I saw all that. I saw it all.
Okay.
Thank
bye.
you guys.
See you later.
Hey, Hank, thanks for giving us another another talk on your mount there. I think that's a nifty system, the Linux especially. I think it's the wave of the future when you think about it, because it's inexpensive, it's cheap, and you put the whole suite together, it does everything that some of the more expensive devices, and it's going to give a lot of old mounts a second life, or I should say a third life. You know.
Yeah. Like I'm on the Losmandy site, and those people are talking about the Gemini system, and they seem to have a lot of problems.
Yes, they do.
And so Gemini is one of these systems that started out as this basic controller, and now they keep adding all kinds of stuff for which it's probably not properly adapted. I think. I mean, at some point you switch to something like Ekos that really has the high
Gemini
end.
is a very old system built by a German company and then handed out or bought by all of the different people, like what's that name, Losmandy, that puts it out in their own brand name. It's very old. It's probably from the DOS era of Windows.
And every so often, they probably have to redo it from scratch because the IC is unavailable.
It's not an organic thing anymore.
What are you talking about, Jerry? Just the 492 system or something else?
No, the Gemini that you get from Losmandy to guide their scope, to do their go-to system.
Yeah, it was developed in Germany.
I think they have farmed it out. They don't do it themselves.
No, they went out on the market and found a product, and then they put it in there. They had it put in their box, like a lot of other people do. The not Teleview. Oh God, I'm forgetting the brand names now. But the scope at the museum that is God, I forgot the brand name for the mount, but it's a plane wave.
Yeah.
It's a plane wave mount, and it's an Arcos telescope. And the plane wave mount also uses the kind of the Gemini type system from the same original inventor and manufacturer. And that one keeps losing its memory. We had to keep loading the memory in it.
Yeah.
So.
You sure it isn't a SciTech?
It could be.
I think it's SciTech because it's got that sky view. You know.
I would actually at some point like to show the system. I can show how to start it and how to do the plate solving online. Okay. I was going to wait until I have my Astro camera, because then you can also get the images at a much faster rate than what I can do with my DSLR. Okay. And one time on TSS, there was a guy who gave a live presentation with SharpCap on Windows, and it was really cool. He had one camera that was pointing outside, so it was monitoring the telescope, so you could actually see the thing move, and he could share screen. So as he was giving commands, you could also see the scope move, and it makes it real live. And he had stellarium set up in such a way that his own home was superimposed on the stellarium sky, so he knew exactly. That was pretty cool, really. And then he started getting images and started stacking it live in SharpCap, and you had a nice image pretty quick. He used a monochrome camera with an H alpha filter to get as many photons as he could. Anyway, so something like that.
Camera out back, we could do the same thing.
Yeah, it would be cool, and then you can just share it, But Ekos could do it, I think. So yeah.
I just
what the least I could do is just even if I can't give a show like that, I can at least show the menus of Ekos and how its planetarium works and so on, and how you can cruise around. I will keep it short, but just to see what the features are and how the plate solving works.
I just did a quick search to see if Celestron still makes the 6-inch Sky Prodigy, and it does not. So the biggest problem with that scope is that the mounting, the tripod, lacks steadiness. And so it was really difficult to use using high power, planetary, or lunar observing. So, but they don't make it anymore. So can't get it with 6-inch. You can get it with 5-inch.
You have to have some kid who's willing to play with it a lot, huh?
Yep.
Well, you could always make it steadier by putting it on a different tripod or a pedestal of some sort.
Yeah, no, Yeah, if I was really serious about using it, I would do that. What I've been using it mainly for are star parties. Like we have starting up some star parties at our church, inviting the neighborhood people to come in and look at the stars. And so it's great. And what it is, it's great just for setting it up and showing people this quick alignment, showing people some bright things. So that's what I've been using it for. I haven't been doing any serious stuff with it.
Well, I can show you guys how I have my 12.5 inch when I take pictures with it.
Oh, yes.
You'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Can I do screen share here, Tom?
Oh, of course, yes.
Okay. Let's see. Oops. I don't recognize which one of these little arrows down here is.
It should be a green color at the bottom. Share screen.
Yeah, no, I got that. I think I'm sharing it now, actually.
And we don't see it yet.
No. I think
Okay.
you also, don't you get like something up at the top that says share it? I don't know, maybe.
If someone's sharing, you'll see something at the top. But yeah, you should click on the green, and then you have to click on the window. When you click on share screen, it brings up the window. You got to click on the right window, and then click on share.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, can you see that?
It's a blank pattern right now.
Okay.
You might have to go back to screen share and reshare that. Get out of screen share and then share a different screen. Yeah, sometimes you have to get out and go back in with choosing the next window. So stop the share and then share a different window and share the photograph.
Okay. I got too many windows open, I guess.
I know, they get hidden sometimes. Yeah, minimize the ones you can.
Okay, here we are.
Mhm.
Okay, back to screen share. How's that?
Yep.
Yep,
Yes,
that's
got
it. Yeah, that's neat.
Okay, that's my 12.5 inch with 15 inch aluminum tube. I had sheet metal end caps made to keep it when I'm not using it. And to keep that where I live, there's a lot of fog. And so I hang a 20 or 25 watt bulb inside the tube and leave it on when I close for the night until the next morning, so that the mirror doesn't get cold and collect the dew. And I use this 80 millimeter as a finder. And let's see if I can go to another. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Okay. This is looking down the throat of the telescope. And I like this because it shows the way that I align the telescopes. I don't use, even though I have the Howie Glatter laser and several others, I found that this is more accurate because the human eye is really very good at deciding when something is centered and when it's not. If something's slightly off center, you can feel something wrong with looking at it. And this is very off center, but it's the telescope is aligned, but your head or my head, the camera lens, is not on the optic axis of the whole tube, because you see from this edge to that edge, that's bigger than from this edge to that edge. So it's not concentric. But if you go through each part and you make this all concentric and you keep your head on the optic axis, that centers or collimates the entire telescope. These veins should line up with the reflection of the veins, and you should not see one side of the secondary sticking out by itself. So if I move the camera a little bit, you'll see that everything then is perfectly aligned, and it's much faster. It's what I use when I go in the field somewhere and I have to set it up. This is the back end of it. This is a telescope, an Orion 80 ED. It's a 2-element telescope. I bought this probably 20 years ago when it was $500.
Wow.
It's an astoundingly good telescope. It's 2-element, but it has almost no color in it. It's F7, I think. Yeah, F7. This one, I have a sliding counterweight system on the back of my tube. The mirror is right back here. And this is to counterbalance the camera and the rotator if I used it on the other side of the tube where the focuser is and the other end. So from this counterweight through the center of mass of or center of rotation of the balance of the telescope, it's a straight line into the center of mass of all the equipment I hang out on the other end. This shows the counterweight system, how many I use on it, and the box that half of the mount goes in. I have this on a pier in my backyard. People joke that I bolted it to the lawn, but there's a large slug of concrete under the ground that you can't see.
Okay.
So does you have that just more or less permanently back there and covered up? Or?
This mount here is a pedestal that I've had in the ground like this for over 20 years. And when
But I mean the scope.
Yeah, the scope breaks down into 2 parts, this axis and this axis that are each fairly light. And the lower mount here resides in this box. There's another similar box for this one. And the counterweights come off and the counterweight slide screws off. So it's really very compact. When the scope is not on there, I put on a armillary sphere that looks like a sundial. So the homeowners association don't think I've got something that they didn't approve.
How much does the scope by itself weigh?
The scope weighs, the way it is now with the guide scope on it and the rings on it, it weighs about 75 pounds.
So you don't break this thing down then, or
Yeah,
you do break it down?
If we're coming to a rainstorm or there's a period of bad, where the sky's not clear and I'm not going to use it, which has been for up to several months at a time, I take this all down. I can set it up and get it going in an hour.
That much weight you can put on there and put it on that mount?
Well, yeah,
Wow.
but as I wrote in an email to HenkA earlier today, the telescope itself rides in a garden cart, and the height of the telescope in the garden cart
That's what I read.
exactly matches where this plate sits when it's in the Park 1 position. This is a sideways thing, but it's where the telescope is pointing along the axis here, orthogonal level with the ground, but parallel to the mount. And so then all I have to do, in this case, this is before I put dovetails on, I just unscrewed these 4 screws and then nothing falls off. It's all ready to go. But when I lower it into the cart, then I take the weights off, then I take this off. So now the cart is bearing the weight of this. Then I unscrew this. And then the rest of the thing, it just pops apart into 2 pieces. And each piece weighs about 20 pounds. So it's very easy to set up. Matter of fact, I use this as an outreach tool.
Very clever.
It's easy to set up and take down. This shows the back of the mirror. The mirror is a conical mirror. That means it's real thin at the edge and it's full thickness at the center. So you can't see it well, but the glass moves away from you as you're looking here. And it's held onto the mount here by a bolt that goes through the center of the tube, or the center.
Oh, that's right. This is a Royce mirror, isn't it?
It's a Rob Royce mirror. The first time he came out with conical ones, I wanted to see what it was like. It's a fantastic mirror. And these are machine-made parts that I had made down here at Machine Arts in Santa Barbara to hold it in. And this was a JMI focuser. I now use Moonlight focusers. And this shows the whole thing. The eyepiece focuser's on the other end. This is the northwest. I have very clear and very dark northwest skies here.
Okay, so what's the F ratio on it?
It's F6.
F6?
Yeah, this is one end of the, this is how I use it as a finder and framer. I have a flip mirror system on here, and it's bore sighted. I use the antennas up on the mountains to bore sight the two scopes when I first set it up. And I have a guide camera. In this case, I have a guide camera that I set back here, and then I look in here for the framing it and getting it lined up. I use the Sky X as a telescope control system, and I've never actually done a plate solve because I've never needed to do it. Once I get it aligned well with the North Pole, which doesn't take very long, then it goes right where I want it to go. So I've never had a need for that. And again, and back to the start.
So Jerry, why did they make the mirror conical shaped?
To save weight.
Just say what.
So a 12.5-inch mirror that's standard thickness would weigh like 35 pounds. This one weighs about, I think about 18 pounds.
Was it molded that way, or did they grind off the?
You know, I couldn't tell, but I know if it is molded that way, then it's also ground, because the back surface is it's between rough and fine ground. Let's see if I can find more.
And Royce retired about 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, I noticed he sort of disappeared.
Yes, he retired. Parts of his website's still on there. The ones that talk about making certain parts for the telescope. He's got a very interesting design for a diagonal holder, an adjuster.
Yeah.
I found the shape of the mirror there.
Yep.
Just a second.
I've got the Royce rfroyce.com conical mirror page up.
Okay, let me see if I can get back to where we are. Okay. Yes, that's exactly it right there. Yeah.
He made very good quality optics.
Oh yeah, that's outstanding.
Did you ever do a Ronchi test on it, or some kind of test?
Yeah, when I look at a star, you know, I test it. I look and see with a knife edge, and it's just razor straight across the whole thing. So let's see if I can go back to share again.
I'll get it. I'll take off my share.
Okay, this is my dining room, and I'm figuring out where to put the holes on the top end of the 12.5-inch telescope tube. There's the tube as it was received. It's got a weld around here because I had him add extra length to it because of neighborhood lights, and I didn't want to have a removable thing, although now I think I'm going to go back and cut the tube off and make it removable. This is the mirror cell, and this part here. This was supplied by Royce at extra cost. So you put the mirror on here with 4 O-rings, and then this kind of screwed on flat plate goes on and it touches the surface of the mirror and presses it down. And then this is the rest of it that I had made that fits in the tube. Here I'm laying out the tube. The paper length is equal to the circumference of the tube. And so I'm laying out where the eyepiece focuser is going to go and where the bolt lines are going to be for the spider. And then I take that paper and I transfer it to the tube. Doesn't show well there. This is the back end where I've got the mirror cell in, but no mirror. And, oh, this is my neighbor, Scott Walker. He worked at that time for William Optics, and William would send Scott different telescopes that he was building, and Scott would evaluate them and send back comments and stuff, and then he'd give him a free sample of the one he was building. So this is the paper that I was working on. It's wrapped around the tube now. When you do this, you got to be sure that the end of your tube is exactly square to the tube. So you get all these things, no error built into it. And then it's got all the holes marked on it, which you can't see on the paper. This is the inside of the tube showing the seam. And these are where I've started drilling through to put in the spider. And here I've got a zillion holes around where I'm going to cut out and do some filing for the focuser tube.
Hmm.
And there I've got it mounted. I'm starting to mount it up. It's our living room floor. I do a lot of work in the living room.
You can get away with that, huh?
It doesn't seem to work anymore. Several of my neighbors.
You got married since then?
Do that in the living room, so that ended. I don't like there.
Oh, there.
Well,
We're
you
still
have,
using that scope.
you have an even bigger project coming up from what you said. You got a even larger instrument you're building
Yeah.
and permanent mounting and permanently set up, right?
Yes, but we'll get to that. Here, this is the dining room. I had to move out of the living room. This is the cradle I use to store it on. These legs just fit into a garden cart.
We're not seeing your picture yet, Jerry.
Oh, you're not? Okay. How's that?
There you go.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
This is the tube, and it's sitting in this cradle I made. And these legs just fit inside of a garden cart, so it can be on a four-wheeled platform. And there, at this point, I'm adding flocking in the tube, which is a stick-down flocking. I cut it in squares about like that. And then I put it down by leaning into the tube. I could just get into a tube and just reach the middle of it on this diameter tube. So I was anticipating doing this on the 18-inch because I've now got the 22-inch carbon fiber tube, but they've already done it for me. So, and then I press it out, keep it flat, and works very well. It's I bought this from Protostar. There's some more pictures. Oh, that's the backyard on that evening. Nice corporeal lighting. So one of our cats came over to supervise. That's our backyard, looking up toward. This is north right up there. I guess. Oh, there it is. This is the finished product. It's sitting on the tube. It's not on a mount, so this was first light. You see, I've run the cart up a ramp, so I'll see over the grapevines and see into the sky.
Yeah.
I was just checking that everything was aligned. This is on a rotating tube system, which I since have taken off. It's very heavy and it adds motion. You can't lock it down really well. So this is looking down the tube, a little off center again, but you can see right away. See how sensitive the eye is. And there we're looking down the tube. Friend of mine, Gary, who's sometimes on here, he calls this my midget cannon, like it was at a circus. So that's it.
Nice. Very nice.
So I'm now at that stage with my 18-inch. I've got 3 more parts that I'm finishing dimensioning, and then I'll get those machined. And in about 2 months, I expect to have the 18-inch together and have first light. So I want to predict, let's see, this is March, April. So around May, we're going to have some of the densest marine layers and persistent that we've ever had.
Yeah.
Well, Jerry, come to Arizona and you're done with that. No more.
No.
So Jerry, what kind of mount are you going to build for your 18-inch? Is that going to be a Dobsonian mount?
The mount I showed earlier that had the 12.5-inch on was an AP 1200. And I sold that a few years ago and I bought an AP 1600 for the 18-inch.
Okay.
So I've used that a few times out back with the 12.5" on it. Now I don't have a lot of pictures to show from the 18" because that was I took it to CalStar about 3 different years. And then on the 4th year, my laptop with all the computers in it, the motherboard burned up or shorted out or something. And so the information is not really retrievable.
Oh, that's frustrating. I mean, you mentioned the 18", but did you mean the 12" you took to CalStar?
12" is the one I use mostly for astrophoto now. Up
Yeah.
until then, I used a 10" that I made at the club and
Okay.
on an AP 900 mount or on the Losmandy G11. Losmandy
you have-
G11 was a mount I had first, and it was from the 90s. It was very, very good.
You have images that you have taken with the 12" then, right? So we could see.
I don't have any that I'd have to go through my records and see if I have any from the 12.5. I don't have any fully processed, but I may have some single frames in one color or some or two.
Okay.
So
I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing the images you can get.
okay,
This
I'll put up
18".
some images. Well, there's
Yeah.
one right behind me. I took this one.
Oh, okay.
That's an M33.
M33.
That's what I
yeah.
thought.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
M33.
was wondering.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You can see oh, I know how the weathermen do this now. You can see the nebula, the nebula in the galaxy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, well, that'll be great. That's a great project you got going for next couple of years. With that 18".
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking for great things from that.
Are you going to continue on with Aperture Fever after that, or what?
No.
That's it, huh?
That has been replaced by. Well, I noticed my hobby has changed. It started out as observational and photography back in the 1960s. And then it got sort of interrupted by graduate school and kids and stuff. And then when I started back again, I started in imaging. But now I'm here in Santa Barbara. And because before I was up on the side of Mount Lukens in the Angeles National Forest at about 2,500 feet. The skies were just breathtaking. I noticed that now because of the observing time I get, I either have to drive somewhere and set it up, or I focus on building them and then testing them at first light and then building the next one. And so, but now it's convenience that's the major thing. So several times I thought, you got to be crazy building an 18" because I'm getting up there. But I can find ways, if they can build a pyramid, I can find ways of building the telescope with levers and ramps and all those things.
Well, Jerry, what happened to your 10 and your 14 that you were dealing with
Oh,
also?
they're all still here. They're all in different stages. Let me show you the. Whoops.
Jerry was making 3 mirrors at the same time.
Right. I only made once,
You only
but I
made
got
one.
mine, but I got it done. Actually, one at a time.
This is the top end
Wow.
of my 14.5" CDK. And I've got the secondary mirror is a 6" mirror. And I've got the secondary mirror fine ground. All the mirrors for this telescope are up to the point where they need to be polished and figured. The secondaries will be a sphere, of course, so that's very easy. The primary, but I had an injury and I've got arthritis, and so it's not possible for me to push that glass around 14.5" blank anymore. So I'm going to give away all my grinding stuff. I already threw away my stand. So I'm going to have to either assign this as a project for the telescope workshop and then donate it to the club, or call someone and have them professionally take it over. So
I would guess with you, Jerry, that both of us would say convenience as we get older becomes more and more important.
yes, it does.
And warmth.
It's just the reality of life.
Yeah.
But Jerry, what about the 10-inch? What's that for?
Oh, the 10-inch was just a practice scope so I could recall how to core a larger scope. If you do it wrong, you can get the mirror to explode on you from stress relief.
Cool.
So, or at least the way glass shells when it breaks from the back, it could take a major part of the front out. So you have to drill through to the back, from the back to about 3/8 of an inch from the front. And then you have to flip it over, and protecting the front from grit and getting scratched. Then you core down so the holes meet perfectly. So with Joe Doyle's help or someone's help at the workshop,
Joe, yeah.
gave me a better way to turn it over and align it, which is really nice. And I made a 6-inch once before back in the 1960s, a 6-inch F4, F16 Cassegrain. And I had a major failure with that mirror. And so I learned how to do it right. And so the 10-inch is my refresher course in how to do it right before I finish coring through the 14.5-inch.
Is that with a copper pipe and
you can use anything. Back in the day, we used to use tuna cans as the coring tool. And so, you know, if you needed something that big. But what I did was I had stainless steel thin wall tubing machined to have the kind of broad teeth that'll push 220 grit around in a drill press. And so I've already drilled through the 14.5-inch most of the way. So once it's figured, then I'll drill through from the front side. And the way you protect the front side is you paint on several coats of varnish on the front of the mirror, the uncoated mirror. And then when you're through cutting through it, then you use acetone to remove the varnish.
Yeah.
And so there you are. One more thing before we go. I've also got another part here. You can see this.
mirror cell?
This is the mirror cell for the 18-inch.
Oh,
So
It's made out of carbon fiber, right?
no, it's made out of anodized aluminum.
did you have that custom made then, or
What's that?
did you have that custom made, or did
Yes.
you order that?
No, I have a machinist that I know real well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Gives me a bargain rate.
Yeah, well, that helps. It's
Does
a
help.
big piece.
So
I mean, Jerry, you could have purchased an 18-inch mirror cell, right, from somebody?
you know, most 18 inches are Dobsonians. And so the Dobsonian mirror mount will not work in a equatorial mounted scope because the Dobsonian always tips one way. And so there's a sling around the bottom to hold the mirror in. And the pressure pads on the back that support it are in a non-spherically symmetric pattern. And for a telescope tube that's going to get tipped every way, they need to be in a spherically symmetric pattern. So that you can't, it's harder to find that stuff. I did approach plane wave instruments for some metal parts at one point instead of make my own, but they will not sell parts. So I told them that if they didn't sell to me, I'd start another company and compete with them, but it didn't move them.
How do you support the mirror at the edge so that as you move it around, it obviously it goes on points that support it, but you can't
See that white
put too
thing?
much pressure.
See that white thing?
Yeah.
That's a nylon bolt. That goes through and it centers the mirror in this ring. I don't have them all installed. See,
Oh, I see. So you got multiple points.
yeah, does
Okay.
that, and then from the front, the mirror sticks up out of the mirror cell about a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 of an inch, if I recall right. And then there's a clip that comes up and around 3 different places and clips it to hold it in. You don't usually operate a Newtonian with the mirror pointed down. So it's only for those cases where you momentarily have it that way.
Jerry, you went out of focus somehow. Oh, well.
I'm a little blurry. I notice it does that. The camera I have is an autofocus camera, but I guess it's got a mind of its own.
Yeah.
No, I
Focus
think
to
it's
infinity.
the disembodied view of you is
Somehow
Yeah.
I
very
can
interesting.
Yeah, your thumb is in view, but yeah.
I-
All right, Jerry, we're after 9 o'clock. Should we call it?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
See you
Hey,
guys next week.
this has been great. And
Thank you, gentlemen.
night.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
guys.
Thank you,
Good.
everyone.
All
So
right.
meeting's over.
I-
Thanks.
Good night.
Okay. I
Tune
won't
in
be
on
here
8.
next week. I have to miss next week. I was
Okay,
thinking 2 weeks.
tune in with us at 11 a.m. on Mondays and see if you can catch us live on YouTube.
Okay.
And call me.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.